I want to start this video off by saying I do not think true crime culture is a good thing. I think it's exploitative, disgusting, and just plain wrong. With that being said, this video is for educational purposes only. So we're going to talk about Grace Packer again. Grace was born with the name Susan, and her name wasn't changed until she was 6 years old. But because Grace is not alive and here to tell us what she wants to be called, I'm going to continue to refer to her by Grace just for continuity. So Grace, her younger brother, and older sister were all put into foster care when Grace was 3 years old. The Packers adopted Grace and the little brother. I have no idea what happened to that older sister at all. And honestly, I think they only took the brother as well because it was probably a caveat that they had to take both siblings. But see, Sarah Packer wasn't supposed to be fostering any children through the Impact Project because it is a private for-profit foster agency. And Sarah Packer was a caseworker for Northampton County. And because of the monetary incentives from these private agencies, caseworkers are not supposed to be fostering kids from these agencies unless they get special permission, which Sarah Packer never got. But there's no way no one knew. There's no way nobody knew. Impact knew. Northampton County Children, Youth, and Families knew. Everybody knew. And just look the other way. It wasn't until David Packer, Sarah's husband, not the boyfriend that killed Grace, her husband, David Packer, went to prison for 5 years. Can you guess why? 2 counts of indecent assault on a child under 13 in regards to Grace and another foster child. So when that investigation against David starts, the Packers lose their foster license, right? All the foster kids are taken out, but Grace and her brother stay. Why? Because they were already adopted. And nobody cared enough to keep them safe. Well, and I'm sure because Sarah Packer was an adoption supervisor at this time, they thought, oh, the kids are safe with her. It can't be her. It's just the husband. Even though foster kids had been reporting to their caseworkers at Impact that they were being abused by David and Sarah. They didn't do anything until those 2 charges David got. So I'm not sure what happened that made them actually have to investigate, but it was a little too late. Because the Packers didn't have to follow the same rules as everybody else, multiple kids were abused at their hands, right? Impact was even sued by those former foster kids. Now, when Sarah Packer was put on unpaid leave and then eventually terminated, it was for serious allegations of misconduct. And that happened a day after the police started investigating her husband. Now, because of confidentiality, they won't disclose what this misconduct was, if it had to do with her own foster kids, with another case. But I mean, it was the day after the police started seriously investigating David. So I think it's related, right? And Sarah Packer was involved in the rape and abuse of these kids the entire time because it was her boyfriend that eventually raped and killed Grace while she watched. It's not a coincidence she ended up with 2 chomos. There's no way. Another crazy thing is that Grace only lived with one other foster family. During 8th and 9th grade, she went to live with David Packer's cousin. Guess who got out of prison? About a month after she went to live with the cousin, David Packer did. Now, another investigative report I read was saying that Grace was abused with this other foster family. It didn't mention that it was David Packer's cousin, but that's the only other foster family she ever went with. And she was with that cousin for around 2 years. David Packer again got out of prison a month after she went to live there. So he was out of prison for almost the full 2 years she lived there with his cousin, where she was again abused. What really blew my mind was that David Packer initiated the divorce from Sarah. After her husband was arrested and convicted of raping her foster and adopted daughters, she still didn't divorce him. No. 5 years they were still married. It wasn't until he got out of prison that he filed for divorce from her. And they still had the adoptive brother. Like, I don't know what the happened to him. Like, the Grace's little brother and older sister, they're just never mentioned. Like, the older sister's mentioned as existing, and then we go to Grace and the younger brother, and the siblings are put in foster care. Then Grace and the younger brother are adopted by the Packers. Sister's never mentioned again, and the brother's never mentioned again either. Where is he when all this is happening? Was he removed from the home, but Grace was left there because she had special needs? The Packers were getting that adoption subsidy most likely because Grace had special needs. That's something these private for-profit agencies do all the time. The higher the special need, the more money you get. It's absolutely disgusting because it's a monetary incentive for vulnerable children. But anyways, so after everything goes down, Northampton County CYF places all the blame on Impact. There's no way they didn't know where all these foster kids the Packers were fostering were coming from. And they could not be coming from Impact because of Sarah's job. But everyone just ignored it. Just ignored it. Oh, because she's a white woman and a caseworker. She can't be bad. She was not a bystander. She was involved. And I guarantee she participated in the rape and murder of Grace. And I guarantee she participated in the abuse of all the other foster kids as well. Unfortunately, Jacob Sullivan, the boyfriend, died in prison of natural causes. I really hope that's just some bullshit excuse and what happened to him was more akin to what they did to Grace. I'm not going to get specific about what they did to her because this isn't trauma corn. We don't do that here, right? But after they did what they did and they left her in that hot attic to die, she undid her bindings. She almost escaped. She almost made it out. And they came back. It had been like 14 hours that they were gone. She got herself free. Almost made it out. And they came back and found her. How do the fucking people say, oh, there's a God? Why wasn't God with Grace that day? Or ever? A young girl with special needs taken from her family because her parents also had special needs. Oh, God forbid. God forbid. They can't take care of children. But the people that you put them with did a much better job, right? Like, it's absolutely wild. And the way Northampton County CYF was able to just place the blame on Impact and not be held accountable at all, mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. They should all be held accountable. Sarah's fucking supervisors, Impact Project's fucking workers, all of them that knew about it and let it happen should all be held accountable.